Today, Monday, February the 8th, we celebrate the feast of Saint Josephine Bakhita, the patron of Sudan and human trafficking survivors. She was a Sudanese-Italian religious sister of the Canossian order who lived in Italy for several decades after having been a slave in the Sudan. She was born in Darfur in Western Sudan in 1869 in the village of Bakhita. Her early years were spent with a loving family. But then in 1877, she was seized by Arab slave traders when she was only 7 years old. Forced to walk barefoot about 600 miles to El Obeid, she had been sold and bought twice before she arrived there. And over the next 12 years, she was sold 3 more times. Until then, although not formally freed, she was given away in Italy. The name Bakhita, it's not a family name. It's a name given to her by slavers, and it meant, ironically, lucky or fortunate. During this period, she was forcibly converted to Islam. Her owners were first a rich Arab and then a Turkish general, and she suffered much from both. At this time, she also underwent painful markings in a process resembling scarification and tattooing. A total of 114 intricate patterns were cut into her breasts, her belly, and her right arm, according to her biographer, Maria Luisa Dagnino. In 1883, she was then bought by the Italian vice consul, Callisto Legnani, and treated fairly well. They then lived in Khartoum. During a siege of that city, of Khartoum, she was able to escape with him, aided by another Italian, Augusto Michieli. A 400-mile camel trip followed to the port on the Red Sea, Suakin. From there, they were then able to sail to Genoa, arriving in April 1885. At this stage, Legnani gave ownership of Bakhita to the wife of Micheli, and she then was brought with the family to a villa near Milano, which is not far from Venice. For 3 years, she was a nanny to the family's child, and then in between was a short trip back to Sudan to check things out and a return to Italy. The Michelis then determined to move permanently to Sudan and take over a hotel in that port city, Suakin. The parents went ahead to settle matters, and they temporarily left Josephine and the child with the Canossian sisters in Venice, which enabled Bakhita to encounter Christianity. When Mrs. Micheli then returned to take both Bakhita and the child to Sudan, Bakhita refused to go back. The sisters contacted the office of the Cardinal Patriarch in Venice for assistance. And in 1889, the Italian court ruled that she had never legally been a slave, and Bakhita chose to remain with the Canossians. The next year, on January 9th, 1890, she was baptized with the names Josephine Margaret Fortunata. The same day she was confirmed and received communion from no less an individual than Cardinal Giuseppe Sato, later Pope Pius X. And in 1896, she then took vows as a Canossian and was welcomed by the Cardinal Patriarch of Venice, again, Cardinal Sato. In the Thyssus community, she was employed as cook, sacristan, and portness, doorkeeper. Her special charisma and reputation for sanctity grew. She became popularly known as Madre Moretta, Black Mother. One story recounts how a student asked how she would respond to her captors were they come before her. She replied that if she were to meet her captors, she would kneel and kiss hands. For if these things had not happened, she said, I would not have been a Christian and a religious today. Most of her life was then spent in the Canossian convent at Schio in the Veneto, not far from Venice. And for 4 years, though, from 1935 to 39, she stayed at the Order's novitiate in Milan in order to help train the sisters there who were going on to Africa. Her last years were periods of pain and sickness. Her last audible words on a Saturday, the day of Mary, were, "Yes, I am so happy. Our Lady, Our Lady." She died on this date, February the 8th, 1947. Thousands arrived to pay respects, and her remains were then brought to the Church of the Holy Family of the Canossian Convent of Schio. Pope John XXIII beatified her, and John Paul II canonized her in the year 2000. Subsequently, Pope Benedict XVI, near the beginning of his encyclical Spe Salvi, relates her entire life as an outstanding example of the Christian hope. So, here she had 4 cardinals, 4 popes involved in this slave from the Western Sudan. Of late, the situation in Sudan seems to be improving, but there still are millions throughout the world caught up, like Bakhita, in human trafficking. Here, a special prayer, I think, is appropriate. Thank Bakhita, assist all those who are trapped in a state of slavery, intercede with God on their behalf so that they will be released from their chains of captivity. Thank Bakhita, pray for us.